as I meet more people, as I talk to more people, as I engage with more people, the conversations are coming up. And I'm just always curious, like what your journey was related to the content, and video and all that. Because for me personally, it took me some time to get over being on video and all the, internal things I needed to defeat within
Absolutely,
myself.
man. Mm-hmm. It really, that ties into my origination story. My dad was a drug dealer who found Jesus. So that's where stuff started for me. And the transformation and living a life of dark to light, right? And understanding and being exposed to those things very early in my life, because our parents invited us into those conversations of transformation. And so when it comes to content creation, before it was a thing like it is now, my dad was preaching on stages and I was sleeping under pews until midnight. And so I've been around public speakers, communicators, personal brands, if you want to really put that under that umbrella of category, for really my whole life. So the thing that really got me, I guess, confused in my calling was when I went into ministry myself when I was 19. I was there till my mid-20s. So I was there for about 6 or 7 years. We built a church of 1,000 to 10,000 people every weekend. And
Why'd you go into ministry?
I'll get into that.
Okay.
And like right at the end of this, I'll get into that.
I'm curious, especially at 19.
It's going to be big. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But the thing that was unique was I hosted over 1,000 live events and I never got asked to speak once. So I thought I wasn't a great communicator. I thought I didn't have anything to offer as a content creator or as somebody who has a unique perspective on something. And there was a time in my life where somebody invited me up to say like, oh no, you're an incredible teacher. Like you have incredible stories to tell and just be who you are. And I was like, really? Like for real? And they're like, yeah. And I had a conversation with my dad too. And my dad said, Nick, you're an oracle for God. Just open your mouth.
I like
Sometimes we got to borrow the belief of somebody else in a season of trial, tribulation, circumstance, situation of where we don't.
perception, right? You perceived you as a certain way.
Totally, man.
Through other people's essential perception because they didn't ask you to join those events.
Because they didn't ask. And I didn't advocate. I never asked either. So the reliance is on me as much as it is the other party. But the reality is I was just really good at running things behind the scenes. In 6 years, I built 6 churches when I was in my 20s. That's unheard of. So it's just part of the story, man. But I'll answer your question if you want to reframe it or ask it again about.
So you said 19, you went into ministry. You told me drug dealer. Dad was drug dealer to pastor.
Yeah.
And then at 19, I'm assuming after high school or whatever, right? You kind of go into where people choose college or 9 to 5 or entrepreneurship, and you chose ministry.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
When I was 18, graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, there's a lot of people who arrived at that point. So I just went to junior college and started there because I just felt like, I guess that's the right thing to do.
You don't know, maybe a step maybe, that way.
Well, let's try it out, I guess. And I went, and that was good. And my best friend was at the University of Florida, and he was transitioning to a different private school down in Palm Beach, Florida, and said, hey, man, I'd love to go to college with you. We should do this together. He's my best friend from high school. So I was like, all right, bro, I'm going to go. So I paid my own way, got my own loans, went down, and I failed out of college the first time there. I got reaccepted, failed out again with a 1.6 GPA. Now, when you're in a school that is in Palm Beach, Florida, that's 1 mile from the ocean, and the girl-to-guy ratio is 8 to 1,
there's some distractions.
And you're 19. There's some
distractions.
There's some
just
distractions.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Blue water, blue eyes, I guess.
Yeah, dude. That's it. So, I just kind of I had this come to Jesus moment of where I was just like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life. And so what do? I called my old man, and I'm like, yo, Dad, I got to come home. Bit of a prodigal son type of moment. And he was like, all right, man, come on back. I got you. And the first question I asked him when I got home was, what should I do? And he said, you need to learn how to serve. And that's where servant leadership came into my life, because it's funny when you're boxed in a corner and you have no other options, you get out of your head and into your heart. And hopefully you have someone who's leading you, guiding you, or beside you who's going to be like, yo, what matters in this moment is that you learn how to contribute, which in Tony Robbins' 6 Human Needs, contribution is a spiritual need. And it takes you out of that place of lack and uncertainty and frustration and puts you into a place of service. And as soon as I started serving, everything started clicking.
That reminds me of the common quote that's related to money and happiness. Money doesn't bring you happiness until you've given away enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's well
it's
said.
almost like, that I don't know, that just jive with me in comparison to your
Yeah.
situation. Um, okay, cool, man. Keep going, man. I want to hear more. So
Yeah.
19,
19,
ministry,
going to
built
ministry,
churches.
volunteered at the church for 2 years full time, didn't get paid $1. Just showed up every day.
Yep.
What problem can I solve? How can I be useful? How can I be of service? And I really started developing this concept around like I want to do shit that matters. Like I don't really care about anything else. I'm not motivated by money. Money is the consequence of doing what you love well. I truly believe that. So my current mentor, David Meltzer, says, his goal is simple: to empower people to be happy. Why? Because if he can empower 1 billion people to be happy, he knows that happy people don't do bad things. So make a lot of money, help a lot of people, have a lot of fun. And I've adopted that because I've already lived it.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I've lived a lot of lives. I'm 35. I've had multiple careers. I've gotten to the top of multiple different industries. Now I'm just in a place of like, how can I live that out? And how can I truly be of service to people? And I'm in a place now of going like, how do I amplify the right voices and give them access and exposure so the world can hear more of the positive things? Why isn't Drake talking about like, it's not cool to drink? It's not cool to cheat on your spouse. It's not. Why are these ideas not present anymore of where someone's having a conversation saying something of like, hey, do the right thing, be a good person. It's so simple, but this is the billboard of my life. This is what I live by. And I'm imperfect just like everybody else. Like I've seen all the bullshit that happens in church just like everybody else. But guess what? This is the way that I view it. And when I was 19, I viewed it the same way. Going into ministry, I'm like, Jesus is exactly who he said he was, or he was the biggest liar to ever exist. So I don't believe the second one. So by default, I'll believe the first one.
Yep.
And that's my basis of any type of belief in a higher power. That's it. That's all I know to be true. So whatever comes after that, my hands are open with curiosity, with an open mind, an open heart, and an open hand to go like, how can I participate in something that has to do with the greater good of people? But I love Jesus, but I'm going to cuss a little. And in the process of doing that, guess what happens? People look at me and they're like, dude, you're legit. You're real. You have a deep faith foundation, and there's a deep basis of truth in your life. But you don't look like what I grew up seeing. You don't talk like the people who I grew up with. And that's because I value being, in a place of authenticity. And authenticity really to me is just real and raw is better than authentic. Like I'd rather be real with people, meet them where they're at. Jesus said to a cursing sailor, literally a cursing sailor, upon you I'll build my church. That's me where I'm like, let me be a part of that story where I can be open-hearted and available to do my greatest good, which I believe is God's work.
I love it, man.
So
Love
19, man, yeah, went into ministry, built a church from 1,000 to 10,000 people, built 6 different campuses, and doing that, I was one of the first 5 people to launch an online church. So we're on online streaming.
Nice.
Church service happens, and now 96% of churches in the world do that. So been pioneering, man, since the get.
Let's go. I love it. I love it.
Learned a lot. That's where I cut my teeth on digital marketing was there.
So the ministry, the servant leadership, good people, getting good out in the world, love it, right? And we were having a conversation yesterday about why I'm throwing this big conference, and
Of course, man.
you throw events too, and we're talking about coming from the heart and changing lives and transformation. So you had mentioned you want to get the right people on the right stages to give out the message to create good and create happy people, and in turn, there won't be evil or negativity, right? Tell me how you're doing that, man, because that's a super cool vision, mission. It sounds like there's a lot of heart behind it. I know there's a lot of heart behind it based on our conversations, but it must be, a large task to accomplish. Tell me a little bit about how you're building it and what you're doing. And how do you find these people? What type of people?
Well, the secrets that you'll learn from millionaires is it's all about systems and processes and people. But the secrets that you'll learn from billionaires is everything's about relationships, right? And that's like the hidden secret. And a lot of people in the world that we live in today, it's just very transactional. They're very transactional in their relationships. What can I get out of this? And then they move on.
And I used to be.
Absolutely, man.
I was
right?
like, okay, next. That's not the way to do life.
Of course. There's no richness in that. It's, it's without depth. And I try to live my life in the opposite direction of where it's a slim crowd of people in my inner circle, but that well runs deep, and I think that that's the people who show up for you in life when you have life's greatest challenges, and the people who will stick their neck out for you, will recommend you and will support you. And that's what David did for me. When I launched the LineCon, which is essentially a conference, it's all about finding, alignment within yourself, seeking a sense of true abundance in your life. When I launched that, I called up David, who's a 100K keynote, and I said, "Hey, bro,
Yep.
I'm not gonna be able to do that, but will you come help me?" He said, "Buddy, your family, I got you." Do you know what that does to someone's head? Do you know how, flying out to California to ask him this question in person,
Your
getting
heart's
to
pumping,
SoFi Stadium,
stress, I'm sure you're sweating.
the whole deal? How? And I'm really good at blocking that stuff out for the moment and going I'll worry about it when I get there. Well, the problem is that pending anxiety hits immediately when you have to make the ask.
It builds up and then it blows up, right?
100%, man. And we're sitting in SoFi Stadium, and I ask him the question, "Hey, man, will you do this?" And he's just like, "Of course." How living a life of where you can be that generous, where you can be that open and accessible and available. And this guy's literally one of the most predominant entrepreneurs on the planet. For him to just open his hand and say, "Of course, I'm here for you and I'll help you." That to me is the greatest demonstration of leadership that anyone can give. I didn't expect anything from him either. I was this a hope and a prayer.
Was that, so did you guys have a prior relationship, or was this a newer relationship?
Yeah, we had met about a year previous, and he's been mentoring me for about a year.
Okay.
So
you knew each other, but
yeah.
you never did anything necessarily aligned,
right?
For a good word, in a business setting.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly,
cool.
Dude. Exactly. So this was the first
So
thing.
he was mentoring you, coaching you, you building that relationship, you come to him, big ask, not sure if he's going to do it. You drop it, and no question, not even a blank.
Not even a blank.
I love it.
My business partner, Mike Kim, we run Influence Brokers, which is an agency for personal brands, and we get people booked on stages. Talking to Mike, who's been my strategist for my business since I started entrepreneurship in 2015. So he's been with me since day one, still to this day. And he's just transitioned to a business partner now. But I still always call him, "Hey, what should I do with this? What should I do with that?" He told me something, dude, that is so powerful. He said, "Do not rob David of the opportunity of investing in your life." That shattered the frame of my mind, because here I am assuming that asking David for help was putting him in a position of where he would awkwardly not want to say no, but he would do it, right? There's all those limiting beliefs that come in with am I worthy? Am I enough? Am I all these things? And he said, do not allow.
And as entrepreneurs, we have those 5 times a week, maybe.
Oh, dude,
that's 5 times a day,
dude. Right? Absolutely.
I mean,
but that's when you're at the right frequency with the right people. David says it this way. He says, your frequency is your neighborhood. You and I live here in Nashville, but we have kind of an elevated frequency of the people that we connect with based on our ideals or our values or the big ideas that we, subscribe to in our life. And those people are everywhere. And so that David's my next door neighbor.
We're not limited to a specific area or a specific type of communication or network.
So Mike was getting me to step out of my mind and to go don't remove this opportunity. He said, dude, he's at a place in his career of where he wants to be a part of your story because he knows where you're going and he wants to help you get there. And dude, I will never forget that. Mike's had multiple, I will never forget that moments in my life. He's been the most influential leader in my personal life and business life. But that was one for the record books, man, because I went and I asked and David said yes. And, that was the day before Thanksgiving in November and February 2020, the first week in February, we launched a LineCon. We had 100 people there. Michael Chandler from the UFC. We had 12 speakers, massive amount of life change for people. What was most meaningful for me was having my wife and my kids there. That was by far the best thing. But secondly, was seeing the transformation that happened in people.
Of course.
And them leaning in and going this is the best group of people I've ever been around in my life. And I'm just laissez-faire. I'm I don't even know how this shit all happened. It's magic. And if we can live our lives in that frame of living inside the magic of serendipity and synchronicity and just being aligned and connected to something that's more divine, you can't lose.
You can't lose. And I think for you, having that event, first time a LineCon.
First time, man. Yeah.
isn't it crazy, the feeling when you see that, or you hear the stories, or you feel the passion, the one-on-one connections, the excitement around certain people. I mean, that's why I throw events,
Yeah, dude. It's
right?
amazing. There's nothing like it, dude.
There's nothing like it, because there's so much preparation. There's so much complexity. I tell everybody I talk to, I'm like, something always goes wrong.
Oh yeah.
I've never
Undoubtedly.
thrown one event where
Yeah.
the plan went according
Yeah.
as it should. But all that hard work, and then you have the event, and when you're having it, I don't even know about you, but I don't even feel that emotion yet. It's almost like right after, or engaging in conversations and building those relationships and hearing about, oh man, I met this person. And then that follow up for me, a lot of the networking events, you hear the stories 2-3 weeks later. I run into someone and they're having lunch, and I'm like, oh, hey, do you know, you guys are having lunch? Oh yeah, we met at your event. I'm like,
Wow.
we're talking about writing a business plan today at the Soho House. That's why we're here. And I'm
Wow.
like, that's awesome, because the connection would have never been there. And similar to what you were talking about is the power of relationships.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
dude. Yeah, 100%.
People get you to where you want to go. If you think you can do anything alone, you're crazy. And
Yeah.
and I think that really hit home for me over the last few years.
How did you learn that?
I think power in numbers. I think entrepreneurship is lonely. There's always a balance, and there's always insight and learning in conversation, right? You and I'm going to learn a ton of stuff today. Hopefully you learned one thing from me, right? Same with
Well, I know sure as shit that you can buy me a house and hook me up, bro. Let's go.
Let's go. I got you, brother. I got you. But at the end of the day, all those things that come together, right? And I think that's the most beautiful thing about being the influence to get the right people in the room.
Yeah, man. That's a term that I came up with randomly one day. I was at a mastermind, and I looked around. And I'm like, how did I get surrounded by all these amazing people? Like, this was very early on in entrepreneurship, and I just spoke up and I said, relationships are rocket ships. Like, when you're around the right people, it just seems like the right things happen.
Totally.
And that's just something I've lived by in my life now, man. And I've had to really focus on upgrading my network. I have a rule in my business, in my work that I do now, which is, I heard it said, like, follow the money in business. You've heard that before, right?
Of course. Yep.
Mine is, don't work with people who have a money objection. It's a completely different flip of the scenario. It's a psychological
switch.
Same concept, but it applies something different. So now when we work, in influence brokers, when we're putting on people on stages all over the world, when we double down and focus on the right person, they're just like, they have a time issue. They're like, I got a guy right now, he's signing a record with Death Row Records. He's got one other thing going on. Like, these people are highly influential. They are people who are at the same time feeling like there's a sense of being irrelevant and overlooked. The last few years in the personal brand rise, I saw it coming 5 years ago when I was talking about this stuff.
Yep.
Now it's hit, and people are like, wow, I built an 8-figure business or a 7-figure business, but now I'm irrelevant. So I'm sitting in my Ferrari, and I'm so impressed with myself, except for some blue-haired TikToker who's talking about business concepts that they have no business talking about because they actually have not applied the skill. They haven't earned it. It's like stolen valor in the military. They haven't earned the stripes. They haven't gone through the pain to understand what it's like to truly be an entrepreneur. So they're just spouting off, chat GPT prompts, and they have no idea the pain. When people understand the pain, I lost $1 million in 2 days. My best friend stole $2 million from me in my business. That happened in sequential years back to back. COVID came, wiped out everything. I had to start back at zero. Those are the true lessons learned.
Of course.
Not ChatGPT, not writing the right words in the right context to get the right hit. It's understanding those golden principles and values, the sleepless nights away from my kids and the arguments with my wife, right? All this shit is real.
It's
super real.
I was telling a good buddy of mine the other day, he was talking about this conference, right? And we're trying to go huge. I'm trying to go big. And, we're sitting there having a conversation, and he's like, yeah, man, this is going to be great. And I'm so excited for you. And like, how much are you actually involved in it? And I was like, whoa, like, me and my wife were having a conversation 2 weeks ago at not 10 o'clock at night about money and about how she believes in this and how we believe that it's going to help people and transform people. And this isn't about us, and this isn't about money, and this isn't about real estate. And this has nothing to do with that. This is the passion that we want to exude, especially as we raise a family here in this community and a child. And I know you've got kids, and we'll chat a little bit about that as well. But you know, those conversations are real, man. Like where she's telling me, I need to do more and work more, you know, and I'm like, no, you need to raise our child, and you're working plenty enough. But like, she feels that way based on the fact that I'm taking a lot of risk. I'm self-funding, right? And we're betting everything on changing someone's life. That's a real thing that really happens multiple times.
Very real. Very real.
How do you sleep after that conversation, knowing that pressure and those things and the emotions, and get up and put a smile on and go work another 14 hours, right? Like, so I think you can go to ChatGPT, and we see this, and I see this in a ton of people, and a ton of people that want to collaborate and want to do content together, and I'm staying away from it because of that exact reason. I like them as a person, but I can see through their bullshit. I can see that was a carousel that you freaking copied from a CEO that built $1 billion business and exited twice, and you've never experienced any of that because this is your first run at entrepreneurship, which is great, and I love the passion. But the fact of the matter is, you haven't even experienced that because I've been watching and following you. I see so much of that.
You know where that comes from?
I see so much of that. It's the easy way out. It's not putting the hard work in. I want quick, instant success, and people don't understand the road it takes and the dedication.
For sure, man.
To build something real, right? You can get lucky, and we can all make a very good investment or a very good business decision, time to market, pricing, first to market, whatever we want to call that. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's the very minute percentage in the reality, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, dude, I agree with you, man. I think that that's the one thing that is non-AI-able, at least currently, is the human interaction and the human experience. And that's a big part of why we're doubling down, is because, like, at the end of the day, watch the market in 2 years. Everyone will try to do what I'm doing. I did this 2 years ago with short-form content. I launched the first short-form content agency. All the pricing, all the packages, the big idea, how it works. And then now look at where things are, right?
You have to do it.
You have to do it. Yeah.
I mean, or you're going to be left behind.
There's no question. And I outkicked my coverage. We went from 0 to 125 clients in 5 months. And you had 25 people on the team. I had to hire 25 people in 3 months. I mean, that's insane.
A big push, yeah. And
then I was just like, I don't really want to do this. So just torch that shit and light it on fire and watch it burn. Refunded $150,000 to people because I was just done. And had to fire everyone on a Zoom call. Not fun, but that's the real stories of entrepreneurship. And
what happened? You just said, "Hey, man, this isn't my calling. Like, my heart's not in it." You were more focused on the dollar, or like, I mean, acquiring that many clients, hiring and building that team. I mean, you must have had some late night conversations yourself,
dude. Real stuff. In 2019, at the end of 2019, I had an argument with God, and I said, "What do you want me to do?" And He gave me this really shitty answer that I still struggle with to this day, but I fully embraced. And He said, "I want you to pastor entrepreneurs." And I was like, "Oh, hell no. There's no way I'm doing that." Because you're mixing something that I had experienced a challenge with. You asked me earlier how I got out of ministry. I wanted to go to Hillsong College, and I wanted to pursue like a full education because I wanted to get my degree and do the right thing. I was married at that point, and my pastor wouldn't let me go. I mean, I understand why he didn't want to, because I was number 2. I built the whole thing with him, and I was his key to freedom. He could do whatever he wanted because Nick ran everything.
Of course.
So I just said, okay, I'm out, which he never expected me to do. And after that, I had to follow the road of the unknown.
Yep.
And so anyway, from that fracture point in 2014, that's 2014, bro.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to 2019, had this conversation with God. He said, "I want you to pastor entrepreneurs." And so it was mixing my past that had a sense of brokenness in it with what I believed was the land of opportunity, the promised land of freedom, which was entrepreneurship. And finally, I just stopped arguing. I just said, okay, that's what I'll do. So 3 months before COVID, I launched my first like entrepreneurial, mentorship type of program. 35 people joined 35 days. It was amazing. We launched it, predicated on a live event. COVID hits, wipes everything out.
Of course.
So then I wait. 2021, I'm like, I need to make money because that's what I need to do.
Yep.
So I launched this content product that I had. It was a great idea. But the problem was I went against what I knew was right. In life, you can have like the right thing happen and it's the wrong time and it's still the wrong thing.
Timing's everything, man.
It's true about relationships.
100%.
It's true about partnerships. It's true about products. It's true about it's true about Tinder, right? Like it doesn't matter what the frame is. That statement is universal truth. And so
You're
I
talking
let
to the
it
guy
go,
who
bro.
didn't think he was going to get married or have kids.
You did it, bro.
Until
Let's go.
literally a year and a half ago.
You did it.
Because of timing, right? And I didn't see those opportunities over and over and over again, and I just kind of.
That's why we got to trust the process, man.
And then it happens, and I meet the love of my life and have the most gorgeous little girl, and who's healthy. It's like,
I call this the open hands principle. Better is an open hand than a closed fist. Generosity begets generosity. Most people live life in a fighting position, right? So they're ready for war all the time. They're defensive. They're combative, right? We've seen all the NPCs. Yep. So this is how it works. But when you open your hands, you become a conduit. And this is what I call like being the conduit of heaven, where in one hand you can receive, but in the other hand you can give. And in one hand you can give, in the other hand you can receive. And when you live your life as a spiritual conduit and or a conduit of good things happening for the right people, you got to hold the tension of more of everything. Bishop Jakes talks about it all the time. He's like, if you're asking for your destiny, you're asking for trouble. Straight up. It's not easy because, right, we know the concept. If it was simple, everyone would do it. It's the world in the upside down. It's how energy works. We have to hold the emotion and the value of the thing that we want before we get it. But humans always say, well, when I get it, then I'll have the emotion of it. That's where I was stuck in 2019 going like, I have an assignment now that I don't want to do. But how long can you run from God? Gideon went and hid underneath in a freaking bunker, thrashing wheat, hiding from God. And God said, with 300 men, I'll help you defeat an entire army. And he did it. He did it. He finally accepted the call. And all of a sudden something happened. Same thing is happening in my life. As soon as I leaned in and I just said, okay, there's something beautiful about surrender. Like awakening, though, is required before surrender happens. You have to be illuminated. You have to understand something differently. You have to have a shockwave hit you before you can go and like, you know what?
And then you digress, right? And then it kind of all comes back and integrate.
Absolutely. Yep. Life's a labyrinth, bro. You just go like this. You go in the door and you go around and you exit the same door you came in. I saw this video the other day. It's hilarious. A little kid, infant, maybe 6, 7 months old, maybe a little older, 10 months old, pushing one of those little like walker things, like they're learning how to walk, next to his great grandfather who's like 90 pushing a walker, and they're both shitting their pants. So life is a labyrinth. The same door you come in is the same one you exit. Where you start is where you finish. And so it is about embracing the journey in between. But my God, dude, you can't do epic shit with basic people. You got to be in a position of where you're going to say, I'm going to hitch my boat. That's why I'm here with you. It's because I know you're up to something. And you got the right heart, bro. You got the right heart. You get it.
Man, I was excited for
that
today.
Shit, dude,
I was excited for today, bro.
Oh, dude,
I was up thinking about, not to sound weird, I was up thinking about you last night. I was.
It's not the first time I've heard it.
But no, but seriously, I was excited to chat today. And we had a good conversation yesterday, just catching up. And I'll share it with everybody if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
It took me about a week to get over the covenant thing. I didn't post anything about it. I did my monthly email that came out yesterday for my real estate business. It's called the Morris Monthly, kind of highlight.
Hey, alliteration. I like it, dude.
And man, I can't talk about real estate in this. So I finally wrote a letter to everybody and really just kind of talked about what I can do through my passion of real estate to help protect our community and to enlighten our community and to make sure that my clients are safe and protected and they know about the community and what they're looking for in a community, right? Because in times like this and in times of, I've lived here for 5.5 years and I came off of the Boston bombing, living in Boston where I'm from, to the bombing here, to the tornado, to this school shooting, right? Like, where do you go in those times? You go to your community. And if you don't know what your community is, or you are looking for something specific, and I put you in a home not in that community based on the knowledge I have over the last 5 years, that's not a good thing. And that doesn't work for me in my heart, right? So anyways, all that to be said, sorry to go off a tangent, but
no,
getting
good,
the heartfelt here. So I started thinking about it, and I said, man, I've kind of ignored this because I wasn't right in the right place to really understand it and get into the weeds of it and learn it. And I started thinking about, friends with kids, and I knew we had talked. So I reached out to you and just said, hey, man, I hope everything was
Yeah.
okay. And you had mentioned to me that your kids were at school that day
Yeah.
at Covenant.
Yeah.
And then I also learned a good friend of my wife, who's become a good friend of mine, was teaching at the high school that day, not the middle school, right? So this all kind of came at once for me, and was pretty heavy, with the new baby and being the new dad and these things that I never had to think about, honestly, man.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Columbine, I was young. I remember all the stuff that's led up to today, but it really hasn't hit as much. So that being said, we had a good conversation just about how we look at things. I'd love to share it with everybody.
man.
Tell us a little bit about your situation, and kids are fine, by the way. Everything.
Yeah.
They weren't
And
in the room or seen anything, but
my core thesis on this is that the world is starving for attention and encouragement. There's a statement I shared earlier, and I talked to my daughter about this, who's 7 years old. She was in the school when all this shit happened. And I said, sweetie, happy people don't do bad things. The world needs a sense of meaning, which I believe is a deeper sense of happiness. You cannot be happy without meaning. Otherwise, the struggle is not worth the endurance required in order to get to the other side and find the promise. Again, it's always connects to the biblical truths of the Israelites going through the desert. They get out of bondage and slavery. They want to go into the land of promise and opportunity, and they're stuck in the same place wandering for 40 years, and it only took 10 days to get through it. But that's how people live their lives.
of course.
They live their lives confused and broken and frustrated, and our world needs hope more than ever before. My kids will march back up that hill. My kids will go back to that school, because a lot of people will cower in fear and be afraid and uncertain. And there's all these questions. And I'm like, no, this is war. This is war. If my kids have this much opposition in their life this early, I can't even imagine the shit that they're going to do. Because energy operates how? Equal and opposite force in the other direction. Tragedy promises incredible victory. And that's where my mindset, my heart's at, where I'm at and how I'm inspecting this. My heart is shattered and broken. I mean, I'm the girls' soccer coach for the first grade girls. Like, that's what's running through my mind is my kids are in there, and 12 of these girls are in there who I have to be responsible for twice a week.
And
like,
it's
it's
worse,
mind-blowing.
you may not
see
ever
it.
have to have a conversation again with them.
Dude, it is gut-wrenching. And I will say this, the cardinal sin of any parent or any administrator of any school is this stupid statement of never in a million years would it happen here. That is the biggest lie ever, because the reality is I said it. I said it 2 weeks before this happened. I was talking to my wife. My wife's father was also a victim of gun violence. She was murdered when he was 3. This is the second time that this shit has hit really home to us. And thank God that God protected our kids in that situation. But that's the statement that gets people confused and gets them off the topic. A lot of times people don't want to talk about it because it's not a fun thing to talk about. But do you want your kids to be like in a place of where they're dead? Or do you want to have a challenging conversation and hold your school boards and the people accountable? Because very simple things could prevent this from ever happening again. I don't have to go through all of them, but there's very practical things that we can talk about around what people can do to ensure that their kids are safe. I will never send my kids to another school. My kids will go to Covenant. They will finish out at Covenant, and then I'll probably homeschool them.
Yep.
But they'll never go to another school.
Well, I think you need to show the resilience. You're resilient, right? I mean, look what we just talked about for, I don't even know how long we've been going because I'm so jazzed up and fired up and excited, man. But like, you're resilient and you need to show them that. And I think and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. I think it's a different situation for me because my kids weren't in that school.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to go through that and then run from it now.
Yeah.
And I think, is that what you're kind of focused on? I want to make sure I'm hearing your message correctly.
Yeah.
Because you said like you're not going to pull them out and they need to go back.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
Would you pull them out? Would you put them in a school if they weren't in a school? In that school?
I don't know.
Because I'm like, I think
That's
I
a
would
good
do
question.
the same
It's really fair.
because one, would it happen again at that school?
Never. It's Fort Knox at this point.
So at that point, that's probably the safest school to put them in.
100%.
As fucked up as that sounds,
It's true.
I would say that's true. And then two, you know, you can't really run from this, especially at that age, because
No way.
now
My
you're going
kids
to
are
teach your
fighters, dude.
kids that they're going to run from everything when they're
They're fighters.
faced up with resistance or someone else doing something to someone else that causes them to change everything.
When
you
bad
know?
things happen in my life, I've learned how to say thank you, and this is good.
I was just talking to a friend. I literally, when I saw you pull in, and was telling him about this guy tried to fight me this past weekend driving down the road, and 5 years ago I would have got out and broke his jaw.
Oh, I believe it.
And
I would not want to get punched by Jim Morris.
It was just I like got sad. I was like, the fight or flight kicked in, and I'm like, okay,
Oh, sure, man. Yeah.
I'm by myself, so I whatever, not with the wife or kids, but it's just so crazy, man.
World's
It's
broken,
like
bro.
that guy is going through some serious stuff. He had a lady friend in the front seat. She was clearly miserable watching all this occur, all because I just didn't go to the speed limit fast enough.
Yeah.
And then we met at the second light, and then it was this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what's that guy going through in
Well, that's
his
the thing
life,
is you never know what anyone is going through. And so that's why I wear this and I talk about being a good person is because you just don't know. I know I've had really terrible, hard days. And in the last week, I've had really, really tough days. The response from this community, we just moved here from Denver like in June of last year. So we've been here for like 9 months.
Oh, dude, you're not even a year in.
Not even a year in. And the amount of love from this community and the way that people showed up, I cannot describe it. I cannot describe it. My son, his entire birthday party's planned. His birthday's next week. All of his presents are bought. The cake is done. All the invites are sent. Someone paid for the venue and all the stuff that's happening. Every single time that we've had to go to a school event or we had to do a parents meeting with all this stuff going on, they have literally hundreds of gifts. And not just for the kids, but for their siblings too. The outpouring of support, all of a sudden food just started showing up at our door. I don't even know who sent it half the time. I had a friend here from high school, right? Who's like best friends with my brother. They're really tight still. Friend from high school. She just shows up the next day and brings us food. I will say this. A lot of people ask the question of like, well, how can I help? Like, what can I do? The difference, and you'll notice this when I say this, and those who have been through it.
Love that you're
will really
bringing
pick
this
on
up because I'm going to bring it back to business
Oh,
after
yeah.
this.
The simple thing that people ask is, well, how can I help? And the question is, you don't ask someone who's completely traumatized and their entire body is physiologically out of balance and they can't think and they have brain fog and their kids are pulling at them and they want to watch Cocomelon and you haven't even made them lunch. Like, think about all of these details, right? But the reality is just solve something. Just do
it.
something.
Take
do
action.
something. Take action, period. So when someone shows up with food, I'm like, thank you, God. And here's the thing that I realized. The people who did that have been through trauma before. They have specifically been through deep tragedy, whether it's a loss, a grief, loss of a loved one, something unexpected, or God forbid what we went through. And some lady mouthing off on the news is not what we need, right? Because some lady interrupted and, oh, I've been through this. And what is it going to take for you guys? It's like, shut the hell up.
Yes.
What we actually need is for someone to love on our family. What I need is for another dad to get down on his knee and give my son a hug and say, thank you for being best friends with my kid. You know, that's the stuff that's meaningful to me. When I heard from my daughter's teacher, she was upstairs in the art room, which is the furthest point, thank God, from where all this shit happened. When I saw her teacher after, you know what her teacher said to me? She said, you should be so proud of your daughter. And I was just like, tell me more.
Yeah.
She said she
Pour
was,
it on me. I want to hear every inch.
she said she was a leader in that room.
Let's go. Love it. Gave me the goosebumps right there.
That's it, man.
Look at that.
Yeah, I see it, bro. She said she was a leader in that room. There was a girl who was crying hysterically, couldn't pull it in, and my daughter's there.
Comforter.
It's going to be okay. My son's walking through the woods down a Hillsborough Parkway or whatever. My one son's walking through the woods, and we hear from his teacher. He stopped. He was in the front. He stopped. He looked at all the kids and said, don't worry, guys. This will never happen again.
Crazy.
That came from my bloodline and all the challenges and all the bullshit that I've been through and how many times I have showed up and how many times I haven't showed up and all the challenges and all the shit that I've been through. That's what I've instilled in my kids. That's what my wife has instilled in my kids.
Success
That's what
right there,
God
man.
has. Dude,
That's the definition of success.
that to me, I was like, yo, that is, if I just got that part right, that both of my kids in the face of the most amount of fear that they could ever go through, that they're the ones who stood up, who raised their voice, who said something, who protected other kids, who were the ones who had the confidence, the ability through that hardship to be able to be an anchor of hope. That's what my life is about. And I'm just so grateful to see that displayed in them. I am so fucking proud of those kids.
Man,
They are legends. They're going to do epic shit. And my goal is to just keep them moving in the right direction.
say,
man.
on the
Moving
right
in the
track,
direction. Oh, yeah.
make their own decisions, but try to
Guide them forward.
Yes,
Guide them forward. And
Yep.
that's what I do with people in business too. How I'm a dad is the same way that I'm a consultant, that I'm a producer, that I help people put them on stages, that I'm an investor. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. I help people guide their energy towards doing something meaningful. And that's all I really give a shit about. And if I can do more of
Pastor
that,
for
good.
entrepreneurs.
Somehow, man, it all makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It does. Let's talk about Dave more,
Yeah, Dave's amazing.
because I have shook his hand, and that's it. I know him. I followed him. I've seen him speak. I've gone to a couple events. I didn't know him the first time I saw him, and I've done research on him. And like, how did y'all get connected? I know you're in his program, but like, how do you sign up for a program and then take it to that next step?
To answer your question very directly, is you show up.
Put the work in.
You just show up. Every time Dave invited me somewhere, I showed up. Every single time. And when he didn't, I would talk to his assistant and figure out where he was going to be, and then I would show up there.
Proximity.
It's proximity, 100%. And
I think he just posted something the other day
Did
on
he?
proximity, which is kind of funny because I'm visualizing the
Dave
video.
is so connected in synchronicity, and he's so in alignment. There's three things that I look for when I'm collaborating with people, whether I'm putting them on or whether I'm looking for people to connect with. First is alignment. Are they aligned? And alignment has to do with, do they know who they are, their personality, their purpose? Do they know what they're up to? And their positioning of who they are in the market, because positioning is very powerful. And so you want to align with the right people, right? The right people who are positioned towards the things that you want to achieve.
Yep.
And so alignment is the first thing. The second thing is magnetism. So I look for people who are magnetic. A lot of times it's referenced that magnetism is being like God. And what I mean by that is God is this attractional quality. We live in a material plane. Electricity, right? The vibration that's running through your body is different than looking at the other sequence that goes in the other direction that has to do with magnetism. Magnetism is spiritual. So it's, who am I attracted to? Who am I being pulled to? Who's pulling on my intention and my intuition? Who's God aligning in front of me out of nowhere, right? And then all of a sudden they call me. Like, I look for that stuff. So I look for people who are magnetic, who can draw people to them, but for the right reason. And in business, when you're magnetic, you know the problem you solve, the promise you make, and the people you serve. And if you know those things, you better bet your ass like that you're going to be magnetic, because you're going to be up to something because you're aligned. But you got to be aligned first.
You got to have the clarity.
You have to have the clarity. Then you have to have the confidence. Then you have to have the consistency, which plays into omnipresence. So you can see how my attention of everything I talk about is spiritual and business. Always. That's the spiritual entrepreneur, right? That's how truly it works in my world. But the last one that has to do with omnipresence is about your phraseology, what you talk about, how you talk about it, how you lean. And these are things David picked up on with me. The second one, the second one in that sequence is your platforms. So it's like, where are you being put on?
Mm-hmm.
When I talk to a lot of people, I talk to them about stages, because everybody wants to be on stage. Everybody wants to speak. I get hit up 15, 30 times a day for people who want to be on stage. Easily. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And so when I talk to these people,
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, we can hook it up too, bro, all day.
Let's go.
So what happens is they have to understand that there's three different ways. Remember I said that the world needs attention and encouragement. This goes back to the same principle. People are seeking significance, but they're not coming from that place of certainty in order to gain it, in order to get to contribution. That's how I see those three things working. It's like, you need certainty, right? And the offset of that is when you're uncertain, you seek certainty. Then when you have it, it's sense of safety. Then you can go to the next level. Then you can go to the next level. So what I'm observing is, when it comes to stages, is there's three different types of stages. There's owned stages, ones you own. You and I own our own stages. We put on our own events. We have people come out. That's the way that I've totally blown up my speaking fee, is because I can make six figures at an event, or if I go do a keynote, it might be 30, 50K, something like that. But I can do my own stage, totally different, and the community and everything else is amazing about it. So
and you can drive it home to where you want to drive
then you run
it,
the stage, right?
Opposed to being told what you need to
I never
speak
got asked to
on.
be on a stage, right? My precursor of like my life before. So that's why I decided to build my own. I'll build my own stage, because I know how to turn a stage into a living room. And that's where people want to be. They want to be connected in that place. So you have an own stage. That's like one of obviously one of the top 3. The second one is you can have a paid stage. And a paid stage is where you pay to be on stage, or they pay you to be on stage. And then the last one is an earned stage. And those ones to me are the most meaningful, because that means you've earned the right to be there. Your relationship, your expertise, right? The proximity, the connection, the network, whatever. Someone tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey man, I'd love for you to participate in this. Will you come out? Oh, by the way, we'll pay for you to do this or whatever. But now you wouldn't even believe it. So many people would rather speak for free just to get the content, because they can take it, cut it, and perpetuate it into infinity and build their authority that way. So I'm getting the entire industry of entrepreneurship and everybody else out of the idea that you need to get paid to speak. The only people who get paid to speak are speakers who have some expertise. I work with entrepreneurs who are experts who happen to be able to speak. So you go make your money another way. Yeah, we'll get you paid to do gigs and to do all that, but that should not be your primary focus. Like, save that for later. Focus on developing your skill and honing your craft at being an incredible communicator and speaking from the heart. I was never asked to speak. I didn't know that I could speak. Now when I speak, people are like, how did you not know that? And I'm like, well, you didn't see me with one AirPod in, standing in the freaking church at 11 o'clock at night, preaching back whatever Bishop Jakes was saying to me. I put in the reps, but I never had the opportunity to
showcase.
Almost 10 years later.
To showcase.
1,000%.
Yep. So
David,
before we get back to David, now because we're on the speaking and I'm feeling the vibe, what was the first stage you got on that you were asked to be on, man? And just to give you, we haven't really talked about this in our relationship because we're newer buddies, but I made the decision that I wanted to get on some stages about 4 months ago because I felt that I had something that I could offer to help people.
Yeah.
So I just, when was the last event I threw? November, maybe? I was like, okay, well, I'll speak at my event, because I wasn't sure that I had it. I didn't have the confidence. And so I'm so new to this. I think my passion was really, I want to share what I have to say. And I spoke at my event and a bunch of people hit me up. I think we were talking about it when we first met, was like, that's the feeling that I want from it. The money, the content, like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But
like, that's not it.
That's the heart,
not
the vehicle to support my family. But anyway, so tell me about your first speaking event and stage you were on.
Damn, dude, you got me on this one, stumped. Here's what I'll say, and this is what I recall. The first time I got asked to speak was for Mike Kim as an entrepreneur, right? I did public speaking when I was in like Fortune 500, and I would do big presentations in front of like our whole marketing department and stuff. But the first time I actually got asked to speak based on like the uniqueness of who I was.
Unique skill set.
Yeah, my unique skill set or my unique expertise was by Mike Kim, and he asked me to be on his podcast.
Nice.
And that's the podcast that I listened to before I got into entrepreneurship. I listened to it all the way through from the time that he started it till 2015. And I remember saying, one day I'll work with Mike Kim. And it went from that to being on his podcast, joining his mastermind, to then he joined my mastermind, and now he's a business partner.
I love it. Great story.
He's an incredible guy. So
relationships.
Yeah, someone's got to tap you on the shoulder. That's what I do with people when, like, if someone asks me, like, so how are you building your business? I'm like, it's very simple. I find pockets of opportunity. I then find people, and I trust my intuition as I source through people to go like, I want to put this person on. And I make an invitation to them and just go like, yo, do you want to speak on more stages? I have opportunities lined up. It's up to you. And I tell people very simply, if we get on a call to talk about business, specifically about putting you on stages, I don't do maybes. You're either a yes or a no. I tell them right off the bat. Yeah. I don't do maybe, so don't tell me you're going to call me back in a week and you got to think about it and talk to your dog and your spouse and everybody else. That doesn't work for me because I'm up to something. Doesn't work for me because every minute that I'm away from my kids taking a call, if it's in the evening, right? For example, like I did last night, I'm taking time away from my kids who just dealt with a tragedy. Don't fuck with my time. And also don't fuck with your calling.
We're way too alike, bro.
Yo. So the reality is like I delayed, I waited. I didn't think I had any value. So I just thought and I sat and I contemplated and I just was repressed and suppressed and just sitting in this bullshit mode versus like going on offense and going into action. So when I tap people on the shoulder, they got to understand what they're working with, which is a lot of dynamic energy. Like, I'm like, shit, I'm going to be the fucking Scooter Braun of the Justin Biebers of entrepreneurship. Bottom line, I'm going to put the biggest people on. I'm going to give people the voice who actually deserve it, and not these talking heads that are everywhere else. And that's what I'm going to do. That's my life's work. I'm not going to fuck with my life's work. If you're ready, let's fucking go. And
Yep.
if you're not, that's fine. Guess
Which
what?
is cool.
And I
Just
tell
be
people
straight
this. I
up.
tell them straight up, this is your one opportunity to work with me. So, like, if I'm in Forbes on 40 under 40, or if I'm on some big stage, or you see me doing other shit, I just want you to know, I don't want you to be on the other side of that conversation being like, fuck, I wish I would have. Find a way. If you know it's right, if you know it's right, then do it.
Yep.
But that's why I'm so great at what I do, because it comes from a place of conviction. People have lost the art of having conviction because there's a lot of reasons why, but I think at the end of the day, they don't really know why they're here. I did an understudy on this. 98% of people do not know their life's purpose.
Yep.
That means 2% do. You're either in this crowd or you're in this crowd.
Yep.
I work with people who are somewhere in between, or they have figured out what they want and they don't know how to get it. So I had a call with a guy this morning, absolutely overcome all the odds of entrepreneurship, drug addicted, alcoholism, building, his businesses in a different country, came to the US 4 years ago. This guy has created so much healing, 22 years sober now. And he literally solved the problem of this other dude's life in his business. His name was Harim. He solved this dude's whatever his life challenges were. He was super hard on him, super tough on him, but gave him opportunity. Now that guy owns half of one of his businesses. And that guy would have been lost forever.
Ever. Yep. Does
So
that tap on the
that's,
shoulder?
that's the stuff that matters, and bringing those people closer and creating opportunity for them. People are seeking a deep sense of significance and confidence and assurance and knowing who they are, what they're up to, why that matters. I can cut to that in someone in 10 minutes. 10 minutes with me, I will clarify every question that you have about your life's purpose, about the challenges of your life, of what you want, who you should serve, how you should serve them, where your unique energy is. I know all that shit. I've taken over 80 personality tests. I had to go through the process of trying to figure out who the hell I am and what I'm here for. But you never, at the end of the day, you always want somebody who knows their shit based on what they've been through versus somebody who's speaking from a place of theory and concept. I know it because I've gone through it.
Right.
I pounded on those gates of hell trying to seek the clarity in my life of how God can use me to do something incredible. And now I know how to take people through it. And that's, again, my greatest contribution that I can make. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to make a unique contribution. And I think that that's the best way that I can do it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, at the end of the day, you are the pastor for entrepreneurs.
I don't know how that happened, bro. I'm going to wear that title somehow. It's half proud, half what the fuck. But at the end of the day, man, that's the deal, bro. That is the heartbeat. And I think that it's also part of what keeps me focused and my heart attentive to the needs of people. I'm meant to walk beside them. I'm meant to be with them. When they wander, I'm meant to bring them back. And only since I've been in alignment with my unique story, 12 months last year, I took a sabbatical all year. And I really had to figure this stuff out. Over 100 therapy sessions in a year, just going through it, man, and just figuring it out. And now everything is effortless ease. I have found flow. I know what flow means.
I was just going to say, are you in flow, in your opinion?
Absolutely. Flow is a study of optimal performance. For those who don't know, I think it's more of a spiritual concept of effortless ease. And so what effortless ease looks like is a lack of resistance and a lack of complexity. And that's where I get people into that flow. And when they're there, then I hold them there and go now this is what we do. And so I guide their energy in that rhythm, in that cadence.
Do you think that health and physical being attribute to that flow as well?
Dude, significantly. And you brought up a really good point. I recently, in the last month or so, about 3 weeks, started the Lions Diet, which is essentially meat, salt, and water. Dr. Jordan Peterson does it. His daughter, Michaela Peterson, fought a lot of autoimmune disease and she went through all the all the challenges of trying to figure out something that would work for her. And I started doing that. And the first day...
So you're 2 weeks in?
About 2 weeks in.
2 weeks in. Okay.
I've lost almost 20 pounds. Literally, physiologically, mentally, the clarity of communication, not searching for words. The first day I had the best sleep that I've had in almost a decade. I literally cried to my wife in the morning. I said, I don't think I've slept in a decade.
That's crazy.
And it was insane how fast my body responded. And all I ate was what it felt like was Taco Bell meat for a whole day. And the inflammation just went out of my body nearly instantly. And then after that, the second day, I stopped searching for words. The third day, I mean, my clothes were starting to like fall off. I'm like, what is happening? Then I did a really quick, analysis of my life. And I'm like, what does my last name mean? I know what it means. It means cave dweller. So I'm like, I've been searching for something that's really easy when it comes to health and fitness and nutrition. Something so easy. What? A caveman could do it. Then I was like, caveman. Holy shit. This is what cavemen did. I'm a 2023 caveman
Nick the
somehow.
Caveman. Let's
That's
fucking
it.
go.
And I'm
Let's
like,
go.
oh, I get it now. I get it. But that's the synchronicity of life. When you're in alignment, things just start solving them in a way that you never thought they could. That's how I met David. I don't know how that could have happened in the way that it happened, but it did. And so that's been insane for me, dude. Like, I will like shred out in the next 60 days. I'm not going to change this. I mean, it'll be less rigid in the future.
Course.
But I've committed to 90 days for doing it with high intensity and with high focus. Commitment and overcoming half-heartedness is part of my life's mission. So I'm always looking for people who are like willing to like overcome half-heartedness. My job is also help them do that. And in addition, I have to live that out at the highest level. So
you can't skip out on these 90 days, man.
Oh no, not at all. But I'm bulletproof, dude. When I'm locked in, there's no stopping me. Someone could come with a big old birthday cake. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, absolutely not. I'm so focused. I'm so dialed in, and my mission is so tight, and what I'm doing is so important that like there's nothing
that's gonna.
I mean, we just had the worst tragedy a family could ever experience, unless you're in the less 1%, which is that you do lose someone that you love in a tragedy like that. And it didn't shake me.
Yep.
My emotions were constant. My stability was existent. My energy was peak. And so I'm grateful I started that even before any of this shit happened. And that's where I go, like, God was up to something. He prompted that in me to do it. And I prayed and I asked God for the motivation to do it. And it happened just the week before.
Crazy.
But that's massive. I cannot even explain. ADHD gone.
Yeah. It's, I fell off the gym for 2 weeks.
Sorry, video that.
I went back yesterday, and the clarity I've had today already. I mean, literally just this morning, the focus, tasks that were somewhat daunting, things I didn't want to do, I just cleared it all out and did it. And I'm like, it's because I had sweat this morning, took my protein, my greens, my vitamins, got back in my regimen of I know where I'm going to be at higher performance.
Yeah. We're always choosing our lower self or our higher self.
And the gym was a bitch.
Oh, dude, of course.
Because I skipped out 2 weeks. It was like bad.
Yeah,
I threw up this morning.
I believe you, dude. It's
I
going
had
to whack
to go to
you.
the bathroom and throw up. I felt like I was 14 again, running suicides for football practice.
All that
I'm
lactic
like,
acid, man. It's just
man,
like, F you.
Yeah, it's like get out of here. So I'm right there with you. But I was curious to that because I was talking to, I made that post and a friend DM'd me. And she said, we started talking about the physical health, but also the mental health. And you brought up 100 therapy sessions, something that I haven't committed to myself, but I've been intrigued about it. Something where I've talked to several people and they're like, man, you just got to go have the conversation with someone who's skilled enough to probe and to direct. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, was that something new for you? Was that something you've always done in your life? I'm just curious because it's new to me. I grew up, which, I'm not the victim or any of that, but I grew up like in Boston where it's like, dude, you don't go to the shrink.
No way, dude. I grew up in New York. I mean, it's the same thing, dude.
So it's like, so now, not that wasn't something that I said, oh, I don't do that, but that was just like, oh,
culturally irrelevant.
That's over there.
Yes.
Right? Like, okay, whatever.
That's for really crazy people. Yeah. In my world, it used to be like, you just got to pray and ask Jesus to heal you. And it's like, yo, he didn't make all this science and all this other stuff for no reason. So very similar, but different. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was just curious kind of on your opinion, because for me, it was like, it's over here. It wasn't relevant. It wasn't talked about. Friends don't talk, right? And that's just, I think, mental health in general, right? We try to suppress it. No one wants to talk as much as we need to, right? But put all that aside, and I'm new to it. I'm trying to figure it out. I've reached out to a couple people, but kind of tell me a little bit about how you jumped into that. And did you, because in my mind, I'm like, I need to interview like 40 people, right? I'm going to the business side, and I'm like, I'm giving so much trust. And then I'm like, maybe that's my problem and why I won't actually do it, because I'm overthinking it. Or
Yeah, there was a point in my life of where I really wanted to speak. I was like, I'm going to be the best speaker ever. Like when I finally figured out, like, I can do this. I was like, what I was actually saying was, I'm going to source all my validation from the applause of other people.
Yeah.
And when I went through therapy, that all unwinded. And then I was like, I have no desire to speak. And then guess what happened? My speaking calendar exploded and the invitations. And so recognition for me is something that I have to have within myself first before I get it from other people. The world reflects the acceptance that I have of myself. It's a mirror. So my external reality is just a projector of my internal
100%.
state. Yeah. And so when I went to therapy, the only other time I had gone to therapy in my life was when my parents got divorced, and it was preventative. I was like, I think this fucks people up, so I probably should go. I'll just do like 3 sessions. And it was fine.
Yeah.
Easy conversation. I was actually glad that my parents split because it just was toxic for our whole lives. And it's actually proved to be amazing. And they both have incredible spouses. And I can't imagine my life without my step
Without
parents.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
It is. It is. And I do wish at times that they would have done that sooner. But anyways, it's all perfect in its season and its time. But yeah, so that was the first time that I went. And then when I had a lot of build and burn in my business, when I lost, my best friend stole $2 million. When I lost another business, lost $1 million in 2 days. All of these other stories that have happened and all these challenges, I was pushing myself to the furthest point that I could go. And basically, I mean, for my wife and I, our relationship got so on the rocks from all the instability and all the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and all the fracture points from all the other people and all the stuff that happened that we just got to the point where we're like, we need help. And we were about to get divorced. And so I was like, let's give it one more hurrah. Like, let's just go do the right things. And we talked and we said, all right, let's do it. So I hired 2 therapists at once. My wife was working with one of them, and then we also met together. I guess 3. So my wife had one, we had one together, and then I had one.
Yeah.
And so the one who I worked with, she works with highly sensitive, highly gifted people. Her name is Sharon Barnes in Colorado. Absolutely amazing. Like 52 years as a therapist. I'm by far her favorite client ever because I really understand all the principles and the science and all the other stuff that I still work with her to this day. And this was at the beginning of at the summer of 2021. And then we hired a PhD to help us work through the tools and resources required. And then she worked with a therapist who specializes in early childhood trauma. So for her, that was where a lot of these things sourced from. But that was like the first time that we really went all in on it. But
I mean, that's all in, dude.
full
that's
out.
like
Full out.
No, we're
When
not
you
just going to
realize-
do one together. It's
Yes.
like, I'm going to go handle my stuff. You need to handle your stuff, and then we need to handle our stuff together now that with these resources that we've acquired in the same room, in the same setting, in the synergy, in the alignment, where we're going together.
Totally. And everything was fractured beyond belief, dude. I'm talking pieces, shattered.
I'm so scared. I'm not going to lie. I'm so scared of that happening.
Just get ahead of it.
And that's what I've done.
Yep.
I've probably read more on that, and I've had more conversations with married people ever in my life. And I mean, I've only been married since July of last year.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get super ahead of it. And that's why, what we were talking about earlier with the up late conversation with my wife is like, it's why I respect her so much, because in those conversations, she's an entrepreneur as well.
Mhm.
So that helps,
Oh, yeah.
right? But go do this event. Go, if you need to use the credit cards, go use it, right? Like before the ticket sales come in, right? We know all about that.
Oh, yeah, dude.
You get paid for everything, and then the ticket sales come in the last 2 weeks. But so I think for us, it's super important for me to get ahead of it and over communicate on the forefront. And I hopefully I do that enough. I don't think I do, but I think that's the only way that I'm gonna suppress the anxiety of that potentially happening.
Yeah, you got to have open communication. I mean, that's talked about a lot, and that's really true. I think the primary thing, and what Ashley and I learned through this, was that 0% of your energy should go on the other person. I'll give you a little analogy, okay? If you're here and your spouse is here, the closer you get to God, the closer you get to each other. So you go up this way, you go up this way. God, I believe, is the higher self that lives within, right? Christ in us, the hope of glory, meaning God is in us. Therefore, we have a state of being God-like, of where we have full redemption. So I'm like, the more that you go in and you work on you and you communicate and be a good person and you love on your wife and figure out her love languages and do all those things, But primarily, the more and the closer that you get with whatever the source is that's empowering you in your relationship, whatever your belief systems are, the closer you get to that, the closer you get to your spouse every time. And the only time that we reject God or move away from God or move away from our internal source, just like the gym, is when we're betting on our lower self and where there's a fracture. David calls it interference. Fear. What's the fear? Identify the fear. That's what you go after on offense, because stress induces disease, dis-ease, right? And so ease is what? Ease is effortless ease. That's flow. So dis-ease is dysregulated alignment. And that's where you have to start having the conversation of what's going on and what can I identify. And you start having those deeper conversations. But when you get ahead of it and you have those conversations early and often, I think it really helps the communication, understanding one another better. I was running a personal development seminar in July of 2021, and I came home. My wife was 36 weeks pregnant. All hell broke loose. I mean, we've never had like really intense like battle matches. And I mean, she was throwing shit off the walls.
Okay.
I mean, now listen, she's about to have a baby too. So it's some real shit. And it is what it is. Incredibly loving, incredibly supportive. She put up with so much shit through entrepreneurship.
There's a stopping
raising
point.
kids, doing stuff.
I mean,
so like it just, and I was, frantic and frustrated and all this. I slept in my Tesla in the middle of a freaking personal development seminar of what I believe is like my greatest calling to pastor entrepreneurs, right? And to do this. And I'm met with massive friction. And of course I study it and I go like, this is not right. There's no way. Why is this happening? Doesn't make any sense. And what we realized was like, oh, well, we're coming, like the wounded parts of us are coming up at our greatest ascension point. Why? Bishop Jakes, if you ask for more, you get more of everything. So you have to say thank you to your challenges and not think everything else is the other person's fault and all that. And what we did is we chose to like forgive the debts, to make a step forward and to realize that everything is our fault and to just step into that. It has nothing to do with you. I don't give a shit what she does, what decisions she makes, all that stuff, what mistakes she makes. I'm just focused on me. And if I can be focused on me and I can put my gas mask first, right? Then I can show it for her powerfully. And then we can have co-creation. But wherever there's a fracture point, the drama triangle, a hero's trying to rescue a victim, and a victim ends up becoming the villain who does what? Attacks the hero. That's why it's not helpful to try to coach your wife, because we try to hero the situation when they just want someone to have compassionate curiosity. What is it you're going through? Tell me more about that. What is that bringing up for you?
She just wants to be open to what's going on in my mind.
And you can only establish that sense or that place of compassionate curiosity when you're good. Because if you've got your own shit going on, you're not going to want to know. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I ain't got time for your shit. I'm just trying to like stay alive. I'm trying to make it past like witching hour at 6:30 and just turn on Cocomelon for the kids and like let them do whatever. Like that, right? Like that's the true conversation of being an entrepreneur and dual entrepreneurship at home with kids. I mean, it's a lot, dude. It's a lot. And so that's what we learned. I went for the first 6 months, then my wife went, and she got her counselor and we worked with them for a long time. I still work with mine. And it just proved to be a place of conversation. We might not get into this one today, but it could be a really good conversation for our next one. After 100 therapy sessions, about 75% of the way through it, I met a Taoist monk that changed my life. 2-hour conversation.
Where did you meet?
Yeah.
That's all right.
It's a whole nother story.
But where? Just tell me a location. Like, how does that occur?
YouTube.
Okay. All right.
YouTube. And this guy lives in the UK. But I met a Taoist monk, 2-hour conversation. Absolutely changed my life. Now, listen, I did a lot of stuff with Sharon Barnes through all my therapy and stuff that was incredibly meaningful. We hacked so much of my story and understanding it, but I was still like emotionally like constipated. Like I'd gotten through so much, a lot of the energy blocks had broken, but I wasn't fully out. I needed energetic enema. And this dude freaking just made it happen. 2-hour conversation, didn't let me escape the moment, brought me very present, coached my inner child and pulled me out of I was out of my house for 2 months.
Crazy.
Like between Christmas and the end of February, one conversation with this guy got me back in my house to take ultimate personal responsibility. And when I said thank you, he said, "Oh no, you gave this gift to yourself."
Crazy.
So that guy is lights out. And a lot of my clients who I work with, I'm like, before we work together and get to the next level, you got to have a conversation with David.
Yeah. Because
you will never feel so free and so like boundless to go do your greatest work. This guy changed your life. So if you want to talk to him, if you're looking for somebody, here's his
I'm
idea.
open for a conversation.
He was
as always.
45 years as a psychologist, and then he became a Taoist monk. So he has all of both sides of the equation.
And then can bring
Oh,
what he thinks on both. And then
he's like, therapy is masterful in Western culture because they convince you that you keep coming back and talking about your problems. I get to the root of the problem in an hour or 2 hours, and you don't ever have to talk to me again. And I have not had to talk to him again.
Man, blew my mind.
A lot more we can talk about.
Well, thanks for coming today.
You're welcome, man.
And
Thank
hanging
you.
with me, man. It's been such a pleasure. A newer friendship, so I'm just super excited to keep connecting and figuring out how we can do some stuff together. How can people find you or connect with you that are watching this on YouTube?
At Nick Cavuoto everywhere. NickCavuoto.com, at Nick Cavuoto on social. You can text me 303-249-5002. I throw out my phone number because isn't that what you want people to do? If like some people just want to say thank you. Some people want to say, hey, I want to be on stages. Some people might say like, hey, you said this one thing and it really impacted my life. I don't create any resistance. I have a velvet rope. I guard my energy well, but I give people the opportunity to make the approach. So 303-249-5002. I'm still rocking a 303 from Denver. Like there's still a part of me there.
Took me 2 years to change
Yeah,
my
I feel you,
Boston
man.
number.
I feel you.
I eventually did it. Cool, man. Well, thanks
Good
for
stuff.
coming, brother.
Yeah, dude. Appreciate you, bro. A ton. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Yeah.